Welcome to Key Conversations, the podcast where we talk about all of the things important to leveling up your music career. Today is a very special episode that is a little bit impromptu. We just finished the surprise 5th season, the 12 Days of Amplify, where we're bringing some positivity to the independent music community by sharing the wins and successes that independent musicians inside of the Amplify community have seen this year despite COVID, or seen last year. It feels like everything's smushed into one. But because we are in the midst of Grammy season, and if you're a musician that's going for a Grammy, all year long is a Grammy season, I thought it would be really, really fantastic to talk to the one and only Joni Leeds. So Joni, thanks for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Well, first off, Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
What a great way to start the new year as a Grammy nominee.
Yes, and ballots close so soon. Oh.
Well, we're gonna get talking about this, but we're with Joni Leeds, and everyone head to jonileeds.com first and foremost, and then come back and listen to the rest of this interview. The reason I invited Joni on to this call, because first of all, she's nominated in the Best Children's Album category. Congratulations. It's your first nomination, right?
Yes, thank you. It's exciting.
It's so exciting for anyone that knows me and has been listening to anything I've said in the past 20 years. They know that, like, this is my game. This is like, so you're there, and it's so amazing. And your record, tell us about the record and who is on it.
Sure. So the record is called All the Ladies, and it's an album that has a bunch of women featured. I have, my producer, engineer, arranger. She played a lot of instruments on it, Lucy Kalantari. I believe I was the first project that she's ever produced. And the mixing is done by Denise Barbarita from Mona Lisa Studios, and Emily Lazar was the mastering engineer. So it's an all-female cast. There was a couple of guys involved behind the scenes doing remote vocals, but besides that, it's all women, and we have Lisa Loeb, Chava Morel, Kyler England, Edie Carey, Vered Ben-Horim, Susie Shelton. There's 20 women. I mean, I could go through them all and tell you, but there's an incredible instrumentalist, Kaylin Bryant. I'm trying to look at everybody. Oh, Nelly Roca plays cello. Rosa Avila plays drums. It's just an incredible group of women. And Lucy did a wonderful job putting everybody together. We recorded most of it in her home in Brooklyn. And it was supposed to be, it did release on April 3rd, which was about 2 weeks after everything shut down in New York. So it was a very interesting release time. You know, basically every tour was canceled. Every musician can relate to that. But what should have been a release for All the Ladies is the name of the album at the Children's Museum of Manhattan on the Upper West Side. Then suddenly, of course, it got canceled the day before. So we decided to do an online festival instead. It was one of the first online festivals, and we actually, despite COVID being really the focus of everyone in the country, especially in New York, the New York Times picked it up and put a huge feature, and we had about 17,000 people watch it, which was like beyond. Yeah,
that's
crazy.
Amazing. So many congratulations around that, and it's so cool that you got to collaborate with so many women and just so many people. What a fun, amazing project. So awesome. That was number one reason why I just wanted to talk to you. I'm like, I get to be in the presence of someone. But there's also been a little bit of drama around this nomination. Just a little bit. And this is what we want to talk to. Earlier, at the end of season 4, if you've been listening for a while, you know, we talked about the Black Lives Matter movement and really how that plays into our lives as musicians. And you're seeing it firsthand with this nomination.
For the moment that it happened, I was like holding hands with my 5-year-old daughter, and we watched the live telecast. It was very exciting. We were the first one for, all, so we were first. And we just cheered, and it was really exciting. And then I saw the 4 names after that, and just right away I was like, oh, this is a problem. You
knew right away.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I had a very good idea of who I thought was going to get nominated just based on I listened to all of the children's albums. And I I mean, I don't want to reveal, but I really felt strongly that a couple of my colleagues were going to be on that ballot, and when their names were missing and it was just white men, I was like, this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a problem for my community. It's going to be a problem because of everything that's going on in our country right now. And we have a lot of really, wonderful people in our genre that are anti-racist freedom fighters essentially. Like they hold all sorts of workshops, and you know it's something that we talk about all the time. I mean, we all make music for children. Our goal is to make really good music for children that's not just about like rocket ships. And I mean, some people do that and that's totally cool, but a lot of us really, we sing about things that, empathy and compassion and social justice and the earth and taking care of the environment and, cultural acceptance and like all of these things we put in our music because we're trying to teach these children the way of our world. And so I knew it was going to be a problem, and it was. So for about 48 hours, I celebrated and I was really excited. It was my first nomination. Every other nominee has either won before or they have been nominated before. Dean Jones actually hadn't been nominated with his band, Dogs on Fleas, but he had produced the Okie Dokie Brothers, and they received several nominations and
One.
Grammy wins. So, yeah. So, essentially, I was the only female on the ballot, which really
Yep.
shocked me, considering the amount of entries, really good entries, that I was like, okay. But then, yeah, white men, a lot of white men.
Yeah. So just so we know here, I have Alistair Mook, Dogs on Fleas, the Okie Dokie Brothers, and Justin Roberts were all on the ballot in addition to you. And all five of you are white, and you are the only female. So those are
Yeah.
sort of the facts, right? Just to look here. So that wasn't it. That wasn't the end of the story there. It was like that feeling that this didn't feel representative, especially, as I'm reading that more than 50% of the children in America are not white.
Correct.
So I'm just going to summarize, just to make this easy. I'm just going to summarize what happened. My sources here are Rolling Stone, Pitchfork, Variety. Like, this has been everywhere. People are talking about this, right? So
Yes.
here's what happened. According to these sites, what I saw happen is that the five nominees are all white, and three of the five nominees, oh, and you're the only woman, three of the five nominees wrote a letter to the Recording Academy requesting that they be removed from the ballot. When I go and check that right now, they're still technically on the ballot, I believe.
Their names are still there. Well,
Their names are
because
still there, but yeah.
they didn't give their statement until after the ballots came out, which I think if they wanted to be removed, they probably should have done it prior.
Right.
That would have
Yeah.
been, but I don't know if the Academy would have done that anyway. And I actually don't know. I'm
Is that a
pretty
thing?
sure that this has never happened before.
Yeah, is that
I
a
mean,
thing where someone's like, nah, no, I don't want it. I don't know.
I, I looked it up and I couldn't find anybody having stepped down before
Yeah.
voluntarily.
Yeah. So that now being that, so that's what I've read, and I'm not in the inner circle. So that these three artists wrote a collective letter. I read it many times. I find it extremely respectful of both the Academy and of the listeners that they're serving, the children and their families.
Yeah.
And you and Justin Roberts, I believe, decided to stay on the ballot. And I read both of your statements, equally respectful not only of the other nominees and their choices, but of the Academy and of the listeners that you're serving. So I'm here to ask you and to talk with you because I think this sort of move is designed to spark conversation so that we can take our blinders off or at least open them up just a little bit, we as in humanity, to see what else is out there in terms of thinking. So would you be willing to share what went through your mind that had you make that decision?
Well, look, we were in conversations not just with the nominees, but with the Black community. We had lots of conversations about it, and I think the three nominees they decided to step down. We all had a different idea of what the best move was. I think everybody felt really differently as to how to achieve the same goal.
Mm.
We all want the same thing. Um, but I think, and I don't want to speak for Justin, but I think his statement really eloquently explained how he's working with the Recording Academy, and he's already working with them. So for him, I think he has a really good idea of how the Academy works. I'm new. This is like my first nominee. I'm not a trustee. I'm not a governor. I'm not on board. I'm a member at this point. And so yeah, I think that was Justin's move, and I totally understand it, and I totally respect it. Um, and then the other three nominees, I should mention, we're all friends, so it's not like this, I don't really know that person. And I mean, I worked with Dean Jones. He produced two of my albums. Like the Okie Dokie Brothers have been on my albums. Like it's a very like incestuous bunch. But
Yeah, I love
um,
that. I love that. It's
yeah,
community.
we go to the KindyCom and all the different festivals together. So we see each other like multiple times a year, and sometimes play with each other too. So
Yeah. And it's
yeah,
worth noting that All the Ladies is your ninth album.
sure
So
is.
yeah,
Yeah, it
so
was a
this
really
isn't,
big deal.
yeah,
And
it's huge.
I think, and I said to some of my fellow Kindy people that maybe if I had written an album about mermaids and butterflies, maybe I would have stepped down. Like I think that would have been maybe I would. I don't know. I think that the fact is my album is a female empowerment album. It's about gender equality. It's about breaking glass ceilings. It features 20 artists from very diverse backgrounds. And I felt like it's not just my album. It's not just Joni Leeds. It's all of us. And to step down is really counter to the whole purpose and theme of my album. Some may just say, oh, she just wants the Grammy. I get that. Like, sure, I do want a Grammy. Like,
Yeah.
who doesn't?
Okay. Duh. That's
But
why you put it into the
well,
where you're at in
exactly.
the
And
first place.
that's why my fellow nominees put their albums on the ballot too, despite what was going on in our country at the time, which is something to note. So I made the decision to stay on because of the theme of my record. All the ladies, it's not just me. It's
Yeah.
all of the
All the
ladies.
ladies. It's too perfect, and it's
Yeah.
representing all of the ladies that are involved in this record because it's such a diverse group of human beings that you were able to pull together. It makes so much sense, and I'm not seeing anyone saying that you should have taken yourself off the ballot. Are you getting any flack from people saying, why didn't you do that too? Oh yeah, it doesn't make
No,
like it
the
doesn't make sense.
community as a whole, I believe from the very beginning, they were very, very direct with me that um, I shouldn't remove myself from the ballot. And I was in a different position than the other nominees. And I think that while many people do respect the decision of the three that stepped down, and I completely respect them too, I think they also saw this is different for Joni and this is different for her album. And it really did influence my decision when I was making it. And
Yeah.
and I don't know, it's a very strange atmosphere because the children's genre right now is kind of like all a buzz, and we're all friends, but then there's this thing that's going on, and we're all just trying to figure it out. But I do want to mention we all do have the same goals, as I mentioned before, just different ways to achieve them.
That was one of the things that I thought, and I think I've commented on a few articles somewhere where it's like, listen, like we are all navigating all of this in hopefully from a space of what else do I need to learn, and how can I take a stand.
Hmm.
And this action was the way these three artists decided to take a stand. And whether
Absolutely.
or not other people would have made the same decision, agreed with it, I personally don't think it's hurting the cause. I know
No,
some
I
people
kind
do.
of wish that when they were when when they were put into Rolling Stone and Variety and um, Pitchfork, and there's a bunch of other papers that have reported on it. It would have been really great if they didn't have like huge pictures of the Okie Dokie brothers, for example. These are my friends, but
Right.
wouldn't it have been great if they had, some black artists, their pictures, and talk about their albums? Because I think that's the whole point. They're trying to make a big statement, but I think that it was a little centering because they, it was like big pictures of them, um, so I think that's kind of the thing that people are thinking
Yeah.
about in the background.
So is the
Um,
media missing a mark to actually turn the conversation to who didn't get nominated that maybe should have, that really would represent, and we're seeing so many different, the weekend BTS, like all who got snubbed. Snubbed is a word, right? Like who got so
right,
where's that article, right?
right.
That
I mean,
would
and it
shine
didn't
some light.
even exactly. And I'm not saying that it needs to say in the article, and they should have gotten it. I
Right.
mean, maybe they should
Right.
have, but it could have said, and here are some amazing artists that you should listen to. And perhaps maybe it should have been their pictures.
Exactly.
Just
Yeah.
saying.
That's really interesting. Just, all of the many steps of and it's hard to know if they foresaw, okay, this is going to get some press. How do we manage that? Like, it's like a chess game, and I don't even play chess, so I'm just going by the Queen's Gambit here, people. But, you know, you
Oh my
know,
gosh, that's a
like,
good show.
it seems like there are many ways to think ahead, and it could go in a lot of different ways. Yeah, I'm more of a checkers girl. So, you know, I get I mean, yeah, it's really hard, and the Recording Academy in general. And I'm just gonna say this right now, that there's a lot of fear and bravery that I think both of us had to sort of step through in order to get on this podcast today. In order to, like, for me, the voices are, what if you get banned or snubbed, or like, put like you might say something wrong and offend someone, like, probably. And
Always. That's how things get accomplished. I mean, that's
yeah,
the whole point of these guys stepping down. They
right,
wanted to make some noise, they wanted to get some attention to make the change.
yeah,
Well, I think that today we should talk a little bit about females in the industry. I mean, that's really what my album is about. And
yeah.
it's because of the Grammys that I made this album, which is a story that I don't think very many people know about. But I was sitting in the audience at the 2018 Grammy Awards when there was only one female in I think the whole televised part of the evening that won, and that was Best New Artist, and it was crazy. It was crazy. I took out my phone, and my friend was sitting next to me, and I was just like, and I was just newly separated from my ex-husband, and we were like, it was maybe 2 or 3 months later, so I was just like filled with rage. And I just took out my phone and started writing like, make a female album, female producer, female engineer. Like I just was like, like all females on that. And I just that was like my goal. It's like that's what I want to do for my next album. And then the Annenberg report came out, which I have been just sending to everybody. I've been like sending the link, like, here's the link, like Oprah handing out cars. I'm like,
You get a
here's the
Lincoln. You get a
report.
Lincoln.
You got an Annenberg report. So it's really crazy how underrepresented women are in the music industry, especially like producers. It's like 2% women. 2%. I couldn't believe it. So that was really important to me in the making of this album. So I guess to go back and rewind, it's like I think that stepping down would just be just it's not what I should have done.
No.
I fully support and understand that it would have been incredible for all five of us to step down. I get it. Like I fully see like how incredible would that be? But for me, that would just like there is no female representation already. Like I
Right.
just I couldn't
No.
do it.
I totally get that. Also, I was at that Grammys and I was wondering who was furiously on their phone, like raging a couple rows
That was
over, and that was
me.
you.
Yes,
Totally.
I was the
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm still married and am full of rage, so I get it. Um,
Well, who's not? But that's the thing about, when talking about intersectionality, it's like it's black, it's people of color, it's indigenous, it's, women, it's LGBTQ. It's I mean, there's all of these different people that have their own struggles, and we're all trying to have equity,
yeah.
equality, equity. And I think and that's part of the goal. And I feel like oftentimes when there's a group of people that are for one thing, it's kind of like they forget about the women, and then the women forget about this, and then they forget about that, and everyone has like their main focus.
Yep.
My focus is like everything, you know? It's like I just, like why can't we all just get along, right? I don't know, maybe I'm just an optimist. I just want everybody to be kind to one another and have empathy, and I hope that we can all heal. Like I really do.
It is a healing journey for sure, and I love the just it's not just about like black, white, male, female. There is an intersection of just representation and equity. And the Recording Academy has been working. They just, this year inducted I think they're calling it a class, new voting members, and really we're making
Mhm.
an effort to bring in more females and diversify the new voting class. So it's not just race, it's not just gender and sexual orientations coming into conversations. The other consideration, and sort of heard things, and we don't need to go deep into down this rabbit hole, but indie musicians getting the quote snub versus
Mm.
favoring record label. And the Grammys started, however many, say 5 to 6 decades ago, as
Mhm.
the labels, the three major labels, to say, hey, let's do this thing between our artists. And of course, more and more independent artists show up, but there is underrepresentation and a system in place, right? Dr. Ibram Kendi calls racism is or a racist someone who supports racist policies. So it comes from the policies and the systems in place that are either racist or not.
Right.
And I'm actually going to end with a quote from his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, that's really beautiful and really ties this all together. But the if these guys that took themselves off the ballot did anything, it's that you and I got to meet on a Zoom call and have a
Hmm.
conversation about badass women, which you
It's true.
clearly are, and I'm excited to be in the presence of. And
Me
for
you.
goodness sake, you came up with this record concept at the freaking Grammys. Like, if that wasn't destined, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm melting a little bit. I have to pause. I'm melting a little bit. It's it's really
Well, and I think that's probably why this is the first album that had received a nomination, the honor of a nomination, because I think it really touched so many people. The songs not only focus on empowering young girls, but I often hear from a bunch of my friends, they're like, I don't listen to it with my kids. Like, I listen to it as a grown up, like in the car without my kids.
yeah.
Because I think it's not just for little girls, it's really for everyone. And I've had a lot of like dads and even people that don't have kids that are they're male, reach out to me and just be like, this is so important to me because of my wife, or this is
Mm,
like that song, like Glass Ceilings, oh my gosh, like that song for my daughter, and it's like it's not just for girls. And I think that means a lot when I hear that. And as a songwriter, I mean, you create beautiful music. When you really touch somebody with your music. I mean, that's how I feel when I listen to your music. I was like, "Oh my gosh, you
my
put so much thought and effort into every little thing," and I just like fell in love with it.
God.
Um,
Thank you. Oh my
but it,
gosh. Melting again.
yeah,
Oh, like a
in your
puddle everywhere.
video.
Thank you.
But that's another thing. I think women need to support each other, and I think oftentimes when you're younger, I think a lot of women are very competitive. Maybe they're like that when they're older too, but I think over time I have transitioned from somebody who was like, "Oh, why didn't I get that?" and then feeling jealous to
Yeah.
now it's not like I'm just like, "Yes, that's amazing. You're
Yeah.
doing this, and then if you do this, then I can do this, and then we can all do this and we can
Yes. We pull each
lift
other
each
up.
other up."
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that's like I put that in a song. I'm like lift me up, don't bring me down. And that was like
yes. I love
a
that.
really
I love
important
that one.
song. That was thank you.
Um, I I think that I actually it was sort of taught. I mean, I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, and I
Same.
I really like have to. I get the jealous thing too when I see other women getting things, and when I see another guy get it, I don't get jealous. I'm like, well, not like, oh, of
Oh,
course, but I mean, and I come from writing for commercials. Like I come from the ad world where I for every penny they said, oh, it was down to you and one other track, and the other track won. Like I could buy a mansion just from the pennies from here. How many times I've heard that it came down, like out of the 30 or 40 tracks we got, it's you and someone else. And I would try. I'm like, how can I pull the female card? Because it's always dudes, right? And I'm like, what is the block here for me? And then when a woman would get it, I would lose my mind. And I'm like, what is
yeah.
that? Like, and I
Yeah.
realized that for, and I don't know where I heard this quote. I think it might have been Tiffany Dufu. I love her book, Drop the Ball. Um, but I don't even know if it's her, so I'm not going to say it's her. It might be her. But the idea that when there's only one seat at the table, we're all trying to get that seat. And then it
Yeah.
becomes about that seat versus we need to shift what the table's doing. Like we need to change the whole table. And now that I think that we, society, is starting to shift to that conversation. And every win of a woman, every seat that she gets to take, she can come and say, hey, we need to change that seat. We need to change that seat. And so that win now becomes our win
Yeah.
versus, oh, that's a win, therefore it's a loss for me. It's no, for me, that's what's shifting for me at least, having had that streak of jealousy and really hating it about myself because I know that I'm also in the same position. Like it was, yeah. So I get all that. Really
Yeah.
quickly, something I wanted to pivot to that I should have done earlier for those listening that don't quite know how it works and why it kind of matters for your category and New Age, which is what I put in Luminary for, is how the voting works. It's not just a vote, like you're voting for your high school president, and we can't tally the votes, and whoever gets the most votes gets the nomination. In our categories, and in many of the 84 categories, the top 15 of the votes get sent to
Right.
a committee, and then the committee chooses the top five. And the
Exactly.
voting members never know how many who got in the top 15, and we also don't know who the committee is. It's all very anonymous. So it's not like an electoral college where we chose or voted for these committee members.
I believe they also have to be like paid up members too to
Right.
be on that committee
Right.
as far as I know.
So
Yeah. I
members that are committee members. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, I didn't really know that much about how any of this worked until the past couple of weeks, and now I've had like quick schooling. But yeah, it seems that most of this is actually on their website.
Yep.
So you can read about it too, but I just know that it is you know, secret committee, but I think they talk about things, but they don't know. Like, I don't, if you and I were on it, I wouldn't know who you voted for, and you wouldn't know who I voted for. So that
Mm.
part is also a secret. So in the case of our nomination in our genre, it's not like everyone in the room or the Zoom room, I guess this year, it's not
Yeah.
like they all walked away knowing
Right.
there's five white nominees. They didn't
Right.
know.
Mm.
So maybe if they had, they wouldn't like maybe they would have made a change, but I don't really know. Maybe not.
Right.
Um, so and it's also like our genre is very strange in comparison to a lot of the other genres. Maybe yours is a little bit similar, in New Age, in that there's every genre in our genre,
Yes.
right?
That's interesting.
So
Yeah.
we
There's
have
like,
R&B, we have, hip hop, we've got folk, we've got jazz, with like big band, like swing, everything is in our genre. So, some of it comes down to merit, maybe some of it comes down to taste, maybe it's really hard to say.
it's interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think we had like 85 submissions this year.
Hmm.
Every genre you can think of.
Yeah.
And then like every subgenre in the genre. So
Calypso, death metal.
exactly. That's my fave.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. I think my like when I zoom out of the whole process and this whole conversation around equity and representation, um, one of the shifts that I feel like would be really easy to make is to open up the transparency, to allow voters and the public to see, hey, the voters are doing something. The committees, whether we end up choosing them or we just know who they are, like, just I don't know what the transparency would be, but I know right now we don't get it. So that to me would be really interesting to see how that shifts this process. Just starting with that very small, probably fairly easy block. So that's I don't know what you think about that, but I don't know what I'm not here to solve the recording problems, but I'm here to be
Yeah.
in conversation and just get wheels turning.
Yeah. I really can't say because I don't know enough about it. I'm so new. I'm so new. I've just been a voting member. I don't hold office, so you know,
Yeah.
I
Me
don't
too.
know.
I'm just a voting member too, and only slightly obsessed with the long game of the Grammy win. For if you haven't ever listened to my podcast before, you know that when I was in my 20s, yes, I'm not in my 20s anymore.
Yes, we
I
are. The ring light
everything
says so. Yeah.
the red side says so.
The ring
Everything
light.
was oh, I love it. I love it. Everything was Grammy by 30. My passwords to my
Mm.
bank accounts was Grammy by 30. Grammy by 30.
Hope you've changed them.
Oh, I've changed them. I've so changed them. But then I hit 30 and I was like having panic attacks because I didn't get that. But I also was like touring and licensing my music for 5 figures and like doing all these things. But I didn't acknowledge any of those because I was
Right.
so like focused in on Grammy. And then like I let go of that. And in my mid 30s, I started working with social justice choirs and learning big like conversations that are way bigger than me, like going to Israel, going to Palestine, like talking with other human beings that are being able to find their stories and their voices through music. And I was like, for a minute there, I was like, I don't need a Grammy, and I was like, no, 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 forget that. We still need a Grammy. So like, but being able to like have that realization, being like, I need to identify the wins along the way, which is why we just did the 12 days of Amplify. For those
Mm-hmm.
of you who listen, and to also acknowledge the power that music has to represent and to be that source of self-expression for people that may not have another way to do that. So,
There are so many fantastic musicians that have never won a Grammy. You know, it's kind of crazy. I think a couple of years ago, I was on a panel in Philadelphia. Um, it was KindyCom. It's a conference for children's music genre, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but I said something like, it doesn't matter if you get a Grammy. Like, we're all booking the same shows anyway. Like, I play Lollapalooza. I don't have a Grammy. You don't need one.
right.
And of course, as a little kid, like, if you're a musician or an actress, you're either going to want a Tony, an Emmy, an Oscar, or a
Yeah.
Grammy. Like, that is the bar, like,
Right.
I've made it.
Yeah.
And so obviously it does feel good to get a nomination. I mean, I've been in the business doing music for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's nice to finally have that.
Yeah.
But it isn't everything.
It's
I do
not.
want I do want it, but it's not everything.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it became like a game like, hey, I'm going to take actions and be someone who's up to winning a Grammy. And if I get it, cool. But a friend of mine this fall said, or last fall said, hey, if you get this Grammy nomination, like, what are you going to do? And I was like, oh, I've still got the social justice choir thing, and then I've got more of my meditation music because I really love that. I've got these old pop songs I haven't released yet. And I was like so proud of myself that I was like, oh, it's not about the Grammy anymore. Like, it's still a game, and it's like a joke almost. How much? Not a,
Hmm.
it's not a joke. Recording Academy. It's not a joke. I'm serious. I really want it. But no,
Oh,
it's become more of just another milestone that I'll move through because I'm in this for the long haul. Like, this
we
career
all are,
is forever. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to just like win a trophy and then just call it quits and be like, well, that's done.
Hmm.
This will open in some doors, I assume, at some point when doors are actually open and we're able to tour and go,
Virtual, digital, all of the all
virtual doors.
virtual,
Yeah.
literal.
But I will say, at least in my genre, the my friends that have won Grammys, we are playing the same shows.
Yeah.
So maybe things will open outside of our genre.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It's crazy world.
Crazy. Well,
But
I cannot thank you enough. Everyone, you need to go listen to this record, obviously. JoniLeeds.com, JOANIELEEDS.
you got it.
Leeds.com, and go consume this record in as many ways as possible. Share it with your friends and families and children's and grandparents and all the peoples. Is there anything left that you want to say that, and just so you know, my audience is mostly independent musicians. So you're really, as an independent musician who just got a Grammy nomination and as a woman, you're such an inspiration. Is there anything else that you want to say that I haven't asked? Anything?
I just want to say, it because of this controversy that's going on in my genre, a lot of people have been hesitant to say anything publicly. There have been some people that have said things publicly. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who's reached out to me privately. I've received a lot of really sweet messages, and I think, I do feel supported, and I really appreciate that, but it's not just me, it's all of the women on the album too. So I just want to say thank you.
Well, amazing. You have my support as well, and I really appreciate you getting super vulnerable. I did say that I was going to end with a quote from Dr. Ibram X. Kendi, who wrote How to Be an Anti-Racist. It's a short quote, but I think it really kind of sums up a way to think about that word, which can be so triggering. But if we can kind of take a step back and listen to it here, I'll end with this. But one either allows racial inequalities to persevere as a racist or confronts racial inequalities as an anti-racist. There's no in-between safe space of, quote, not racist. The claim of, quote, not racist, neutrality is a mask for racism. It's a real call to action, and that is what your whole record is. That is what I know you all in your genre are working towards, even though you may do it in different ways, as we're seeing in. And I really just honor you for being so graceful in this whole thing. And I really wish you the best of luck with this Grammy.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me today. It's awesome.